This is a can of Coke. And allegedly, the rumor has it that within 15 minutes, no matter where you are in the world, you get one. Education, you don't. Isn't it paradox that we do get this refreshing drink, though, within the glimpse of an eye, but the bare necessity is not available to anybody? This can will serve us as a little reminder of this paradox, and while I say that, let me just give you some facts and figures to start from. When we talk about education nowadays, we know that over 250 million children do not have a primary education until the age of 6 years old. Furthermore, 400 million people are still in poverty and will basically never get out because they lack those skills, those educations to leave where they're starting from. Those numbers, by the way, they are from 2019, and since the last 5 years, those numbers have just gone up by 5%. So even though we have so much technology and so much advancements, it seems to be kind of like amazing. On the one hand, we are drowning in information and in things capable of doing. On the other hand, there seems to be basically nothing. Why I'm saying that is because if we switch from third world countries where education is not really available, at some place at least, and we move towards Europe and Switzerland in particular, did you know that most people lose their pleasure and their motivation after being 6 to 7 years in school? Who of you has already passed those 9 years of formal education? Please raise your hand. And who wants to continue now in education? And who's really motivated to do so? Okay, that's fair enough. I totally feel you, because when I was 14 years old, I had basically the very same feeling, the very same emotion. When I was 14 years old, I wasn't really good at school and I really didn't like going to school, and I faced the conflict of not becoming the person I always dreamt to be. I wanted to become a Daniel Düsentrieb, an engineer by heart, but yeah, I have basically 2 left hands and I'm not really good in crunching the numbers. So I thought, at least. And for the next 2 to 3 years, I just tried to figure out what I can do in life. And coming from Switzerland with very strong and proud Spanish heritage, that's not good if you don't go to Schaffen, that's not gonna work. Well, I was lucky because I had something that most people lack, and that's a network that was providing me with access to a bigger company with 3 letters called IBM. And then for the very first time, I was really, really happy what I was doing. I was fixing printers, I was fixing computers, and I was so happy because I didn't have to deal with people. And I still do this until today, not dealing too much with people. I do appreciate people, but the thing with algorithms is just they're more predictable, at least sometimes. And for the last few years, I was torn again more and more after being an entrepreneur for 10 years towards this thing called artificial intelligence, which I, for the very first time, met 28 years ago. It was very basic back then, and it has to do with language. It was called a program called IBM Via Voice, and you could basically talk into a microphone, and then you could tell it what to write. Very simple, but there was a CD, a DVD you had to push in, and then you talk about it, and me having several languages at heart, I was very pleased that it understood me in any language possible. And why does that matter? So if we talk about artificial intelligence today, maybe we should rather go to the real term, which is large language models. And with large language models, we can use that skill that is most dear and maybe oldest to us, which is telling stories. Telling something we know and bring it on to the next generation. In ancient Greece, Socrates allegedly once said that this is the end of the world. Now people start writing down things. while real enlightenment comes if you know by heart. I mean, yeah, maybe. I don't know this speech by heart, it just flows when I'm talking it, and still I know things, right? The ancient Greek but also said that once you have wisdom, you see the light. And light will get you out of the dark ages and will bring you to a point where you have a better place and a better future. Still, like I said in the very beginning, many people lack this support. 40% of children that are in developing countries will not be able to obtain any education, well, because their parents don't have one. And who is then to teach, right? Who will pass it on? I want to take you on a little journey of an experiment by thought. Because on one hand, we do have the developing countries which are having all the necessities and all the tools and all skills available, and yet they don't like to go to school anymore. Reason, by the way, is that it's not tailored enough, it's boring, it's not really manageable and feasible during the time given, and whenever you have something really you want to dive into, nobody really knows how to do it, and teachers lack the time. So wouldn't it be great if you have some assistant at some point that helps you go through your learning journey? On the other hand, you don't have the infrastructure. You don't have the access, you don't have the books, you don't have the means necessary to basically do what you want to do. You can't learn. But like I said, there is this new technology called artificial intelligence or large language models, and I just came back from a longer journey in Africa, and they have this big tree called babao. And it's said that you cannot embrace this tree without the help of others. So basically you have to hold one's hand and then you can go around. This tree, by the way, is the tree where stories are told. It's a tree where the animals come together, where the elders come together, where everybody knows and shares stories. And above it is kind of like a big brain, a conscious of some sort maybe, and something that we can rely on, such as ChatGPT nowadays, right? Sometimes I think, at least that's what I experienced, that people rely too much maybe on this ChatGPT and they stop thinking. But at the same time, you can use it. You can use it for your advantage. You can ask a question and it gives you an answer. Of course, we still in the developing countries have to learn how to use those kind of tools. But on the other hand, we could maybe make it available to third world countries and to developing states. And get me right, there's many shades of course, developing countries, and some may have access and some may have not. But the big problem with artificial intelligence nowadays is that, well, it's too expensive, it's too energy consuming, and it's far too big, at least to some extent. That you better understand what I'm talking about, if you're using ChatGPT nowadays, it consists of 170 billion tokens or parameters, 175 billion parameters, that's approximately 400 million pages of reading. So if you start now, you'll be done by the year 3320. But it's just information. Yeah. But it's huge, so you need huge servers and huge technologies to drive it, and you have to put it in the cloud, and like I said, sometimes this resource is not available in developing countries. On the other hand, it's an energy game, because if you're using such a tool as ChatGPT, you're basically draining the same amount of energy as from your smartphone is one fourth. So you're using it, 1/4 goes down. But by the sheer amount of people using it, it's the equivalent for every day of roughly 200,000 households. Imagine if you have to decide if you want to use your energy for cooking or to heating up your home or just using to ask for the latest joke. And when I was preparing this speech a few weeks ago, I thought like, okay, that's kind of bad, you know, giving you an insight on large language models, artificial intelligence, crunching some numbers and then saying, you know, it would be great if, Yeah? If we just could, use these tools and make it widely available, and maybe also use it to motivate ourselves again. And I was a little bit annoyed, and then I just let it go. And then last week, something happened. There was this announcement from Microsoft that they just released a new model called Phi 3. Phi 3 is a very small, tiny, large language model which only runs by a few 100 million parameters, but it's as smart as the big ones. And that's actually interesting, because for once and for all, it was proven that it's not the structure and the bigger the better, but the quality of the wisdom and knowledge in it. And just 2 days later, Apple came with OpenEML. It's an open source model as well as the name says, and it's called Embedded Language Model. And that's kind of interesting because there was this other big company, what's the name again? It used to call Facebook, I think. Now it's Meta. And they just released their Meta AI, which is available here. Hey, Meta. If I talk to these glasses, it allows me to call friends, to take a picture, to even use video, but I can also recognize things. Plants, for example, crunching the numbers, making a translation. Problem is that this thing still needs Wi-Fi, and it still is connected to this huge model. Wouldn't it be great if we just could use this smaller model I was talking about and put it on a little chip and maybe, put it on glasses like this and doing the very same thing? Wouldn't it be great if we just could make this kind of glasses available to everybody? To be very frank and clear, this is not my glasses, but it serves the point. Because while those are great Ray-Ban sunglasses, it costs a fraction of a price, and it runs on a very, very small model. It could be made available to basically everybody in the world if, just a percentage of the revenues being produced by the big models would be shared. But in order to do that, we must change our thinking. We must take our privilege and say, if something is free, maybe it shouldn't be free as long as nobody else is profiting from it as well. Wouldn't it be great if we could use this technology, make it literally available for everybody, be it in a classroom in Europe, and then saying, maybe I'm a little bit more of an introvert and I do my homework with it without talking to anybody, I just talk to my glasses. And at the same time, we make it available for other countries because it's a little bit more sunshiny and the very same thing. But again, we have to rethink education. We have to build alliances with other people. We have to build new networks. We have to bring people together, educators, regulations, financiers, and build a whole new net of knowledge, maybe wisdom. But it has to start with somebody. And I ask you today to hopefully join me. Join me in a new way of making technology available to everybody, because now we have the whole picture. Hey, Meta, take a picture. Thank you very much.